you, Homi. Thank you for joining in again. And I'll add a context there. Why am I here? And this exactly is the story that I asked. So I partnered with CultureMonkey for Rentomojo. We took it as a pilot, but because I've seen the engagements of the world, and when I heard the story of engineers trying to solve a problem, and then when I actually looked at the product, I literally fell in love with the product. It actually brought a lot of things that I've been trying to solve either through, we've seen together in the OHS at organized Aditya Birla level, or when I was working with great places to work. But I was amazed to see the engineer trying to solve this problem, and the product was really well. It catered to a lot of needs that I have. Of course, there's a lot that needs to be built over time, but that's where I connected, and when I realized that there's no HR guy who's been involved into this one, and because they drew the inspiration from a company of 15-20 people also that they run, and they realized that there's been no attrition. They've been able to engage people. People are super charged up. I think they brought that into a solution, and I was like, okay, I needed to, and I thought whatever I've learned, can I add value to their product or thinking process? So that's where I with them. And a very important thing that we realize is, like, while I have my point of views, a lot of leaders, a lot of people out there have a lot of point of view, which I think is going to be important to build the product better. At CultureMonkey, it's about listening to employees. I think what we realize is that we need to listen to the people who are driving and are setting the agenda of HR in the industry. Because insights of what do you build in a product and so on and so forth. So that's what got me here, and that's what I started reaching out to people that I know who have a point of view, which I think is going to be important for HR folks, because that's the target audience, and of course a lot of things that this team can pick up and work on and enhance the product. So that's how I got connected.
Yes.
And very well said. To add one point here, right? So our core strength is technology, right? So we have solved multiple technological problems, and we've never had this HR layer. If you spoke to me a year ago, you'd be like, oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. But this journey, this journey of gelling with people leaders, right, has taught us, and more than taught us, it has installed so much about the problems that can be solved through technology in our muscle memory.
Okay.
Now we are automatically thinking like HRs, thinking like the people leaders, thinking like CHROs, right? So that's a very, very humbling purpose to, that now even the words that we use, the slang that we use internally has started to change, right? That's a beautiful. So yes, back to you, Ketan.
Thank you, Senthil, and for the audience. I have with me Homi Tarapore. Homi is the CHRO for Trust Group, and it's an organization, financial institution based out of Mumbai. He has worked with brands like HDFC Securities and Aditya Birla Retail. That's where I met, and I'll talk a bit about that later. India, Infoline, and the WNS Global, and several other brands. He has about 20 years of experience, and I think a very interesting thing that you would find on his profile, while I'll share my personal experiences later, but he believes in people, human behavior, and technology. I think he's somebody who is an evangelist of these coming together and solving a larger problem. He's extremely he believes in a lot of introspection and finds in traveling and music. So that's kind of Homi for you. I know another thing that is not written out there, but I know I can call it out. So initial few conversation, I realized that he's been a boxer in his college days.
Okay.
He's been physically very, very fit. I said, what? So he just said, you don't know, I've been a boxer for a large not that he used this to ensure that we are working harder, but generally a conversation. A core belief that he carries is that everything good can become better over a hearty conversation. So I think it's been a good mix of using head and heart together is what I've also experienced with me. I know Homi from Aditya Birla Retail days, and so I was as a management trainee then literally pushed into retail. And the only task I was given is that we have to hire some 400-500 people a month You have to be a part of the machinery. You will be given a candidate name, an offer, and a comp sheet. Prepare an offer and send. Right? So I did that a lot for entry-level roles. And then somebody says that, okay, this is a pretty senior person in HR, and I had no idea that he was going to become my boss, to be honest. At that he was the first candidate that he hired, but the amount of patience that he had on that call, right? He would ask, and typically the compensation structure is more than exit. Now he'd ask question. I said, okay, Homi, give me time, I'll come back. And I'll be worried, okay, how am I dealing with that? I'll go get authority, talk to him. But not a single point he ever lost patience, because he probably understood the context where I was coming from. I think that was the first moment. And if I remember something which is almost like 13 years back that had happened to me, which means it mattered to me. That's one very important thing that I had. It was easy for him to say, hey, you guys don't even know what you are solving for. To me. But for me, that mattered. And fortunate enough, I think he joined. I started reporting to him. He's been a mentor to me. He's been an ideator. He's been an action taker, right? I think when it comes to actions, and I think I usually can very comfortably interchange these words. But very important, his strategic outlook is so impressive. See, I have usually seen this combination to be rare. A lot of people are either action taker or very strong, and strategic very strong. But I think he has, at least that's something that I've always looked upon to him and learned from him. This is what Homi for me. In my book, a lot of chapters are what he had. I got inspired by him at a moment when he created a change in me, and I know I've shared that with. But yeah, to tell you something that he's kind of a boss that I can work many more times. I think amazing he's been. And I'm not mincing words definitely here. So Homi, welcome again to Culture Club's Culture Masterclass powered by CultureMonkey. And thank you so much again for your time. If we could hear more from you about your organization and about you to the audience, I think that's a good start. We could do it. And then a set of questions that I have.
Yes. So thank you, Senthil and Ketan, for inviting me here, and thanks for such kind words, Ketan, for the way you spoke about me and introduced me to the entire session here. So I'm quite humbled, actually. I'm quite touched. So I'll take about maybe a few seconds to just come to the tone and speak with you all. It's quite emotional to understand, how a colleague with whom you work, and and likewise with Ketan. Ketan has been a phenomenal learner. When we interacted, there are a lot of things I learned from him. Though he mentions about his learning, in fact, I also learned from him as a colleague. I liked the promptness and the urgency he put to every kind of task that came between us and while we are executing the work. And I think that is something I take with I take it as a big pride for me that I had an opportunity where I could learn from my colleague how to put in urgency in certain tasks, and so that we complete it to the end result. That is one. Second, also I think whenever I worked with Ketan, I enjoyed one part is that the way he completely understood the concept of the task. The whole principle of the task, and then execute. He just didn't go all out just executing without thinking. So there was a lot of application of mind and thought towards a particular job, and then we got about executing. And that is something I quite appreciated. Then and as well. Whenever we get an opportunity to work together, I think that'll be a wonderful experience for both of us to experience together. So that's something very good. So just a little bit of I'll just give just about our organization. So I work for a company called Trust Group. Now we are into financial services in this domain. I would call that we are a young organization because we've just about completed 20 years now. A little short of completing 20 years, because if you look at age, like human beings, till about 19 you're a teenager, and then you go to the 20th year out of teens. So we are also in a similar journey. So what happens in a journey like this, that organization also is young, has its set of beliefs, has its set of way doing things, And when the organization is looking at growing, the growth in an environment which is changing, in a whole ecosystem which is changing, in that growth, how do you assimilate all the kind of knowledge and the information in the market? How do you get the right people on board? Now, these are things which are quite challenging, and my job with the organization is to bring in an alignment of the growth journey that they have thought, the organization has thought for themselves, taking along the current people and also inviting newer talent to joining the organization. So that's the organization as a personality. We take a lot of pride in saying that we are like a knowledge workforce, because we believe in a lot of innovation as an organization, in innovation and products that we bring in. The thought and the subject expertise that our organization brings in the area is very well respected amongst the industry. So our organization, our leaders, our promoters are very well respected in the entire fraternity. Our range of work, of course, ranges from institutional relationship to now beginning to move into retail relationships. I mean, we've been in individual relationship now, from institutional to individual relationship. That's the journey that we are getting into. So we've got about a couple of businesses, predominantly in the debt asset class. We have a dominance there. We also have the equity asset class. We have organization. We've also ventured into wealth management space about a couple of years back, and we are also looking at a launch of newer businesses. So there are a lot of name and a lot of brand work will happen eventually, because the new businesses that we are getting into are of quite of interest for individual client as well, along with the institutional clients. As far as me, I mean, Ketan already mentioned, I mean, about my journey. Yes, 20 years I've been, I've always enjoyed working with entrepreneurs. I mean, from the start of my career, I mean, I always believe that, the kind of learnings that I had with entrepreneurs is immense. Something where I'm able to value add as a professional. So the journey has been from organizations which are looking to grow, to organizations which are looking to transform, to organization which is looking to stabilize a certain elements. That has been the journey for me. And throughout the journey, I've met several people with whom I had a good opportunity to learn. I mean, there are leaders, there are colleagues with whom I had in a lot of meaningful interactions, and that's how I've been able to learn a lot. At the same time, in this journey, I've been also able to influence the essence of human relations in the organization and the workforce. Now, that is something I think I did capitalize in the last 2 decades of my experience. It is very important that when you work with multiple stakeholders, the whole engagement of or relation between the workforce and the management has to be linked up and aligned. And that is where I think I have been able to contribute meaningfully. Yes, there is still a lot of scope of learning. I mean, all of us keep on learning and discovering newer things. I mean, I keep that open. But yes, I've been able to do that. As far as industry is concerned, yes, a large part of my career I've spent in the financial services industry. I had a stint with, where I had an opportunity to work with Ketan, that is in the modern retailing segment. That's been there. Yes, BFSI is a sector where I've contributed a lot. But overall, all in all, be it when any industry, it is the people who have the same emotion, the same request, and the same issues all across. I mean, and that's what, and that is where the product that you're introducing, Senthil, becomes very important. Because anything that is around engagement or anything that's around the concept of culture is important in every industry. It is just that the talent in the particular industry is executing their expertise, but the emotions are the same because of the environment upbringing that we've had. that's about a small brief about my professional work which is there and the organization that I'm working.
Can you share your views and experience on this entire concept of culture engagement? What do you see? What has been your experience? I think that's a point that we would definitely like to hear your point of view.
Okay, so very good and interesting question, Ketan. And this is a question that we have read about while we were in our colleges and school institutions. We read a lot of articles about cultural engagement. We have ourselves experienced when we are, in the job per se. Now, I would say, before I just share about culture and engagement, I'll also share about the way the work scenarios are changing in the last couple of decades. So, I mean, if you look at what happened between 1960 to 80s, then what happened between 1980s to 90s, 1990 to 2000. So there's a change of the working environment which kept on happening. Okay. And interestingly, we'll have to be aware when India started growing in the certain sectors like IT and services, which had a big boom, between 1920 and 2005. There's a lot of change in the work pattern also happened. And in the last decade, what we are seeing is a complete evolution of the e-commerce businesses coming in. Again, there is a change of work patterns which is happening. Now, why I'm sharing this? Because every time a change is happening, a new set of work pattern and culture is being built. Now, so culture is, when I'm saying culture, the way I understand is very much to the changing environment, the changing need of the industry and the country or the world when we look at of a particular organization. Now, it's a very vast subject. It's a very it's a concept that everybody talks about, but very difficult when you look at implementing something or driving something, when you say that this is exactly what we want to, because what we understand by culture is a set of values and belief system. Now, it is a belief system built by the people who at the core are building the organization. So again, if I take you to the example that I'm sharing, the e-commerce industry, you had a lot of tech-based organization which cropped up in the last 10 years. Now they have a typical set of behavior and typical set of approach of executing a job. Now they are among the set of beliefs, they have actually built in a culture wherein that forms the overall value system of the organization. Now, when an employee is looking at joining a particular a company like the case in point, the example that I shared, the employee has to align with the set of culture which is there set as a system by the organization. Similarly, if we go back to 1990s, early 1990s, where you had a big boom of the banking industry. The banking industry, what had happened when there are a lot of private banks started in India, many of the talent pool in the banking industry actually came from, moved from multinational banks to the private banks. So when they moved from multinational bank, the ethos or the work systems is what they carried is the very multinational banking kind of a system belief is what they brought into the private banking, and those are the ethos that came in. So the workforce talent who joined these banks and these organizations at that period of time had to adapt and align to those belief systems. Okay, what was there? I mean, it was more structured, it was more process driven, it was more timeline driven. I mean, and now if you look at the e-commerce industry, I mean, it's everything is happening at the moment. It's very moment based and idea based and newness based. Okay, so I'm just trying to give you a building a concept around this thing and how culture is and every organization when they are building in a value system around it. Now, I would say, see, employee engagement is definitely linked to interlinked with culture, but culture, of course, plays a larger role in the overall, the way the person gets, employed in the organization, and how he or she, develops himself or herself in that journey of within the organization. Now, engagement, the way I understand, of course, it's one's individual motivation and drive to commit to getting the job done, or the relation with the job and then with the organization. Okay. So, yes, I would say many times engagement as such, people do try to combine engagement along with the culture as a concept. No, I mean, I would say that these are two independent concepts. Okay, culture, of course, forms a part of the entire, values and the belief system of the organization. Now, engagement, I would again say, is the motive or the drive of the individual to perform that. Now, motivation is again very individual. Okay, my set of beliefs and my set of thinkings may be something which I may not like in the particular organization, and as an individual, I may choose to continue or not continue with the organization. I mean, depending on what my motives are and what my interest levels are. So that is where it gets very, very challenging for the the leaders, the CXOs. How do you integrate these two things and bring it together? So it becomes a job by itself, because these are two different independent elements. Is what I would say. I hope you understood what I said. I tried to be as simple as possible, but I don't know whether you understood what I said.
No, you started by saying culture is very, very difficult and it's very complex. But every word that you said, I wanted to listen to more of you. It's like it feels like hey, let's meet. Let's all of us meet and do this, right? So that's how it felt. Very amazing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes.
Interesting. Thank you for bringing that up. So if I take this this concept of culture right now and the entire world going remote. Now, I was just reading an article which is by NASCOM, which says that most IT giants are looking at moving to a work from home for as high as 90%. Just read an article. In fact, I was having a on that, which means this is not a temporary change, but these could be massive ones, and they are the companies which have like a large set of employees who work with them. Now, what challenges do you think the CXOs have dealt with or are dealing with, especially when it comes to matters of culture, when the world is going remote? What's your point of view around that?
Yes. So it's a good question and a tough one as well, Ketan. Okay, because we are all experiencing that. Okay, and we are in the environment. Yes, I would say that
even without remote, culture was difficult.
Yeah. Now with remote, okay, it's a new angle.
Okay. What I had agreement with Senthil on that, whenever any of my reporting managers come for this conversation, I'll make the questions very, very tough.
So I think this is one of the most difficult questions. Okay, but but I can add a little bit from whatever I've been experiencing, or what I've been gathering information, knowledge by my discussions with leaders within our organization, outside our organization, in the fraternity which is there. So I think one of the things which what has happened during COVID-19 is that there has been a complete disruption of the way we are working. Okay, and the biggest challenge the CXOs are facing today is about uncertainties. Now, these uncertainties are of here and now and of the immediate future. The immediate future and here and now uncertainty is there. So when to put a better perspective, the big challenge of the CXOs is how do you navigate through these uncertainties, which is currently put across and placed on the table, and how do you navigate through this uncertainty? Now, very specifically, if I bring you and draw you to our topic of discussion, which is around culture and engagement. Now, I think there are a couple of challenges which come to our notice, and what I feel. The first and foremost is connectivity. Now, when we are looking at remote operation, now connectivity in terms of IT connectivity and also in terms of the physical infrastructure that is provided to the employee. Okay. Now, when we are looking at this, so the remote work and arrangement for the the employee or the talent who's there has to be effectively available. Now that is one of the worry which is there, because when we, of course, when COVID-19 happened, and we all moved into this arrangement overnight, there were a little bit of challenges. But as we are deciding what's going to happen post COVID-19, and if we are going to continue with the remote working arrangement, whichever way it is, this is going to be a top priority for all the CXOs to ensure that the connectivity is good enough. That is number one. Second, because there's a shift of way of working from the traditional working system to a remote working system, because everything you are not physical, you're not in a physical accessibility with the colleagues, you are in a virtual accessibility with the colleagues. The whole work and the work management has changed. I think what the second part challenge which the CXOs are dealing with is that what are the small innovations the employees are going to introduce in the work practices. Now, because there are a lot of change that is going to happen in work practice, and the little small innovations that you do in work practices are going to help a lot. And that is a big worry, that are we, the CXOs are thinking, these change or this small changes or innovation that we do will it be implemented effectively or not? And there has to be a lot of drive and initiative from the entire workforce to bring in this. Now, first, there has to be understanding and accessibility of by the workforce, employees, and the management that, okay, this is a newer environment. And second, how do we bring in the small changes and innovation in these practices? And that's a big worry. The third, I think, definitely is around the motivations of the employees. Now, if you go back to the theory of motivation, you have motivation X, motivation Y, and Z. Now, they have, there are people who enjoy working, like to work in any given environment, and there are people who would not, who will try look at every opportunity to shirk away or avoid work. Now, how do you ensure that these the teams are motivated enough? And how do you ensure they come together and work together and are able to deliver the result that is expected? Fourth is about human connect. Now, I've also figured out, see, in our working environment, what is happening? A lot of I'm saying, if I go back to the pre-COVID days, okay, now when in the regular environment where we had. So, see, remote working was existent earlier as well. It is just that we are forced to get into this as fast as possible. But earlier also it was there, and nobody took the advantage of remote working. Okay, earlier. But what I observe is that in the human connect, a lot of people they enjoy coming to office, workplace, and interact with people, and that is something which is a very, very important element. Many people, they want to have this two environment. You have a home environment where you have, you have a familiar environment and you do work there and you contribute at your, the home environment. Then you want to come to the office environment where you want to meet, and there is a need to interact with different kinds of people personally, and that also gives a lot of motivation and inspiration to people to come there. And I have actually, when we did our, just to give an example, when we conducted 2 surveys, internal surveys within our organization during this period, during the initial period of when the lockdown happened, there was a very strong feedback coming from our employees, saying that they are looking forward to coming to office and meeting people, because that is something, a source of inspiration for them to come there. So, we cannot take that out, So that's a big challenge that we, I think it is there we are worried about. Then comes to balance. Now, balance, when it comes to, it's the work integration balance. How do you balance the work life as well as the health and well-being of the team members? Now, that, of course, it is very subtly coming, and slowly that word of balance is becoming stronger. You will see that at least by give it about 7-8 months, this whole word of balance is going to be talked about in all the webinars and forums, how this concept of, because what's happened in the remote working, because of the anxieties from both parties, by the leaders as well as by the team members, because of the anxieties, everybody has started, engaging much more stronger, longer. They started giving more time and more time to the work area, and they've so the limits of the timing of work is actually being exceeded in most of the occasion. When the entire remote working was forced upon everyone, all the organization, everybody was anxious, and because of this anxiety, everybody started and giving in extra effort to this work timings. And what it happens is, when you're doing actually a lot of you're putting a lot of time on the work front, because of the anxiety, you are actually missing on a lot to do with your health and balance. Now one has to recognize that element of balance, and one has to bring in and balance it. And here I would say the leaders of the organization play a big role as to how they want to set it up, and of course that's one of the big worry that they also have. And lastly, I mean, in the set of challenges, I think acceptance I think is a big challenge. To accept the fact that remote working is for year and to continue is something both parties, when I say both parties, the CXOs and the employees, both have to accept it and start adapting to this change. Because the more time we take to accept it, we are just procrastinating and pushing our decision to actually get into this new arrangement and start working. I think that acceptance is a big challenge many of the CXOs are dealing with now, because we still feel that coming to a physical accessibility kind of work arrangement will give you a better productivity. I mean, that's the thinking many of them have. They're trying to shift this whole dimension of thinking.
Right.
Yeah.
I think these are challenges which are there. Yeah.
In fact, glad you brought that out, because I'm also speaking to a lot of organizations on. So from Rentomojo, we're trying to create this work from home solution. Now, very unique, a lot of human behavior and decision making is changing. Like, I realized that when I came to Bangalore, I took a house which was very close to office.
Yes.
Paying an X amount. Now I'm thinking that should I move to a bigger house in the extra?
Absolutely. Yes.
Now there's no attachment for me to stay close to office, because at best I will go once or twice to office. And I think that's fine. Even if I have to drive for 3 hours, I think mentally that is absolutely okay. And I was not alone. When I started speaking to a lot of people, they said, yeah, this just makes sense, because then I'll go to a cleaner and a better and a far more open area. Fortunately, Bangalore weather is which was very pleasant. But we are also contemplating, does it make sense to actually either move to a bigger place or a different place, or a place which is far more personalized, or even save money? I think any of those benefits.
Correct.
Now, that's really changed. That it doesn't. Me staying 3 kilometers from office was always beyond control. But yeah, I think you great that you brought that out, because a lot of these theories are going to change. And
yes,
it will. One point I was able to relate to when you talked about acceptance, right? So we hired an engineer and designer just March. March 1st, 2nd week, we hired an engineer designer without knowing what's going to happen, right? And then the first month they're like, I was, okay, let's see where when we get back, because a lot of training, it's a startup, a lot of things you can't remotely onboard them, right? So they need to understand. And then after second month, third month, now we said, I remember this, hey, no more other strategies. We have to accept this is how it's going to be.
Correct.
Better get align everything like remote work, and let's move forward and plan for this not meeting, because so that's one thing that you accept it or not, it is going to be there. Eventually you will accept. So
you can just delay your acceptance, but ultimately you accept it. I mean, this is the change. You have to accept it.
That's what I heard from you. He was telling me, right? He was like, whether you want to postpone or you do it better now, so that you save some time, right? So excellent points, Homi. Thanks.
Yeah.
It brings me to the second part. I think you've shared that in when you were talking about those things like balance and acceptance. Now, what is the positive? Is there a silver lining that you see that COVID has brought to, like, as HR professionals, we've been trying to build few things, and you said influencing is a very, very important part of the role too, about humans and human behavior.
Yes.
Now, do you see a silver lining which actually a change like a remote working did to you, where people had no option but to accept few things which we as HR folks have been trying to push in for a long? Do you think something like that happened?
Yes, I think there are good positives which are actually come in here. Okay, one when I look at productivity. Okay, now people are. This is going to be a very, very highly debatable topic for some time now. Okay, traditional working versus remote working and the productivity. Okay, now I think the work from home arrangement. It is an arrangement which provides the employee a lot of flexibility to execute the work at his or her comfort. Okay, and when you want any delivery coming in, you don't want your employee to be anxious. You want the person to be in a very comforted mindset to execute the work. And I'm talking about the nature of work which can happen through remote working. There are specific type of job which may be required to come in a work office, but there are many type of work which can actually happen through a remote arrangement, and they would they would actually positively look at this, the entire flexibility provided. So I think that can connect with productivity very well. Now, when I look at productivity, I'm not talking about the outcome because that is a separate discussion. When I put productivity in line with our topic of discussion of engagement and building of culture. Now, what has happened? Now, this entire thing has developed productivity. How the productivity is improving? Because the employees are becoming more compliant to the virtual meetings, to the remote engagement and remote processes that they are having. So they are getting a more compliant in that. They are becoming better coordinated in their efforts because everybody is forced into this situation there. So they are consciously thinking that they have to coordinate the work much better than what it was earlier. Because see, when we are earlier in environment, it's a very different environment. Many a time things get taken for granted, but here you are consciously putting an effort. Collaboration. I think one of the big part I have seen, the collaboration has actually the level of engagement in collaboration has gone up significantly. Not only in, I can just share this, not only in our organization, I have been talking to other organizations as well. And I figured out, because this has happened so suddenly, people have actually started collaborating much better through the, this arrangement. Now, expression. Now, one of the big thing is that, see, when I remember when you are doing a town hall in a workplace environment, many of them are not even asking question, and many of them are distracted with what is happening around there. Now, in a virtual setup, when we've run a couple of town halls, and I have seen the quality of questions that are coming in. Very good question from the, and there is, so when you're in a virtual meeting, what happens in a conference, in a virtual conference, nobody is thinking about who is at what position. You're just at a screen, you're on screen, I'm on a screen, and you just freely, there's an exchange of questioning and ideas which is happening, and that is beautiful. I think that's something is encouraged. Not only the leader has come closer to the employee, and the employee is also coming closer to management, and that is a big positive, I think, which is there. I also think what is going to happen is that organizations and teams and the CXOs now will not be worried about what kind of office premise should I have. Everybody is going to be worried about what kind of laptop or a computer I'm going to provide to my workforce, what kind of telecommunication system he or she has, so that I'm able to connect to the person more effectively. And everybody is more, so there's a dimension shift of the work arrangements from the office space to actually a lot of focus on the IT and communication kind of thing. And lastly, what I think a big plus, as I said, with my couple of points that I mentioned, is I think there is a big good shift in the level of conversations that are happening. See, it's not communication, it's the conversation, it's the material of the conversation has improved significantly due to this remote this new arrangement which is coming. Because when I'm engaging, or when two people are engaging, they know what subject they want to talk about. There is no additional extra distraction in the conversation. They stick to the conversation. The quality of conversation improved a lot. I think that's a big plus that I see among the healthy engagement.
Wow, interesting.
Nice.
Thank you. So what do you think this means for the HR fraternity? What all things would it redefine? So a lot of people who are going to listen to this are going to be HR folks. I think very important to hear from you of what do you think it's going to change for the HR fraternity as we imbibe this new normal, whatever we call, or the new blood.
See, for the HR fraternity, if you refer to my first, when I'm giving a context of the experience and what I shared, is that whether it is different industry or is a different working arrangement, the basics of HR is going to be there, and people need to just stick to that. Basic of HR will not change. Okay. What I think one area where there's going to be a little bit of shift, and how our entire HR group of people are going to focus on or work on, is talent solutioning. I calling it more like a talent solutioning, which involves the whole elements of work. Now that would involve an element of mobilizing of people. Now, how do you mobilize people? Not only through, earlier it was mobilization was a lot to do with locations. Here it is not location, it is assignments. So there's a focus on assignment. The assignments may be a short assignment, long assignment. So how do you mobilize the talent around that? How do you figure out the gaps of skills, and you upskill or reskill your talent within the organization? Okay, because there will be definitely a strong drive in getting the entire workforce digitally enhanced. Digitally upgraded, right from the top to bottom, including the HR profession. They have to be digitally upgraded, and that is going to be there. So that's going to be the main area. And of course, how do you upskill and reskill around that? Of course, so a lot of learning around that level. I also feel, as I said, in the mobilization, there's also going to be a change in the work design. So the HR will have to go back to the drawing board and figure out how the work designs will keep on changing, and how do you provide the designs for a particular specific period, looking at a particular assignment or a job, and addressing that particular challenge. So work designing, so a flexible work designing, talent mobilization, and reskilling and upskilling is going to be a continuous process. That is why I'm calling it a talent solutioning, which HR will have to work on. Apart from this, on the qualitative side, I think HR will have to level up their engagement of counseling. So because counseling is going to be one area where the HR professionals need to upgrade their understanding of how the counseling process is executed, and how do you deal with the employee or a member and counsel the person through a particular situation. So there has to be an upgrade on the level of counseling, which I think HR has to look at. So these are, couple of things I think would be there, and rest is going to be the basics. See, I'm not talking about words like adaptability, agility, and all things, because that is for any environment, whether it is remote working, change. If I change from financial services, I go to a different industry, I have to adapt and be agile to understand. So that's a given. These are all given. But the core around here is the flexible work designs, mobilization of talent, reskilling, upskilling, and the digital upgrade for the entire workforce is mandatory. And
if I take this question ahead, while there is a professional role. There is also a lot of question on what happens to career path, growth, progression. I think as individuals, there are also a lot of questions that we see are popping up in my head or people that I speak to. So what are the new things that you personally believe that individuals who want to make it and continue in the corporate space need to imbibe and embrace too in this new world?
So I think part of it was in the previous comment that I shared is one of the thing is everybody, as I said, the digital learning in the new environment has to be top to bottom. Okay. And one has to be, one has to upgrade himself or herself in this space. Say, for example, if I'm an HR professional and if I do not know how a machine learning or an AI technology, at least the concepts of it work and what is the benefit do I get, then I think I'm not doing justice to my role and to the organization. So which means I need to enroll myself and get certain understanding of fundamentals of how it works so that I'm able to apply it. Similarly, for every individual in their respective space, they need to have this upgrade. And I think, we cannot avoid it because it is going to be an integrated part of your profession. So you have your subject expertise and you will have your digital understanding of how the work happens. So one has to, get these two things together. Yeah. The second thing, I think, the second part for individuals is on the mindset. Now, the mindset has to be flexible and agile, because when I'm interacting or I'm executing a particular job in the new arrangement, the nature of job, as I shared in the earlier comment, could be different. So the nature of job is the definition of the kind of job they're doing and the time period of the job. It can be a short time period, it can be a long time period. So one has to prepare that mindset to be in that. And also, when you're saying that the speed of change, how faster you accept and move around things and adapt is what individuals will have to, look at. I would also say, here what's going to happen, because companies are going through their own set of challenges, okay, with the remote arrangement, and you have the entire workforce who are also, experiencing changes. But if workforce can focus on assignments which are there, and adapt around themselves around the assignments, digitally upgrade themselves, and the corporates encourage the entire workforce to digitally upgrade themselves and have a entire a workflow or a framework wherein the movement is very, very flexible and easy for talent to move from one maybe job to another, or one situation to another situation, or one project to another project. So that's something is going to be a plus for everybody, and one has to keep themselves prepared for it.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think I can relate to a lot of them, and the digital upgrade and learning and being abreast with the terminologies, I think is a super important one that I carry. The conclusive and the last leg of this question, I know you have addressed bits and pieces of this in the overall scheme, but do you think is e-culture the future? Is it already there? What's your closing broad theme on this entire piece?
Yeah, so I definitely think e-culture is the future. Okay, and if you refer to my earlier one of the comments, it is the faster we accept it, the better we are prepared for solutioning around it. Okay, so it is definitely here. We've just got a glimpse of it during this lockdown and arrangement that all the organizations started doing in this period, the last couple of months. We've got a glimpse of it. Okay, we cannot avoid it. Okay, culture definitely, as I started sharing earlier, that it is a value system of the organization. But the faster we move to a e-based kind of arrangement, and faster we adapt to it, I think that is what is one has to look forward to. And I very strongly believe that e-culture is going to be an integral part of work life for everyone. Okay, for everyone around. I mean, whether you some may accept it, some may not accept it, or some may accept it later. We cannot avoid it. It's going to be a part of it, and you got to be in it. Now, in e-culture, what happened is that and I'm also saying there are some organizations which might already have implemented it also. I mean, there are organizations globally which may have looked at it, and of course, when I'm sharing my talks, of course, a lot of my experience and what are comments I shared is in the context of the domestic what we're doing in India. But when we look into global setup, yes, there are the organizations which have adopted this the whole theme around e-culture. We have to give it time here to mature, the whole concept to mature. And I think the across the workspace, this is going to be a part for us, and we have to live into it. The culture which is there.
Right. Right. No, there are even before COVID, right? So there are many startups, especially in technology, globally. When you there's this company called GitLab. So these companies, they have done remote work since for a long time, 3-4 years. So they suddenly got a lot of traction a lot of other companies turn to them to learn from them. What are the problems? There's this company Buffer, who's there are many companies globally, like you said.
Correct.
Even before COVID, now it's just another day for them. They felt like it's just another day.
So earlier, what would have happened? The organization could have thought that a remote working is a possibility, but nobody ventured towards that direction. But now, given the situation, now we know, oh my God, this is fantastic. I mean, it can work very well. So rather, accept it and move on.
Yes.
Privilege also in certain organizations that you earn work.
Yeah.
That's true.
But glad world changes. I think this has been like the most interesting overnight change that at least I think I would have asked in my life. But interesting.
And I'm telling you, and I'll share one thing. I think I'll give this benefit to a lot of Indian organizations who are there. And they've all adapted. Many of them have adapted very, very smoothly, and moved on to providing and building and a lot of solution already. A lot of corporates are working towards it, and I think that's a good sign, because everybody's pushed into a situation. I mean, because you're pushed into a situation, you have to think what's new and what's going to work for everybody to move together for the growth. And I think one good part about the whole concept of e-culture is that it has to become very aspirational. The e-culture, when it becomes aspiration, what happens? People get inspired to be a part of it and start, connecting to the whole concept of e-culture.
Yes.
So it has to be, it has to be, probably, projected by the corporates and the organization. I mean, the catalysts who are working around this concept. You have to make it very aspirational, how it works for the organization and what are the benefits around it. And so you get inspired with the whole concept and are there in it.
Nice. Yes.
That's fun.
Awesome. I think we can go on for long, but I know.
I hope I've taken a few minutes extra. Yeah.
Okay. We would be more than happy to continue with that, but I know there are a lot of thoughts that you have left us to come back to. There are 5 kind of rapid fire questions that I have for me. I think this is how we typically close our conversations in CultureMonkey. So
I get most nervous with rapid fire talk. Okay. Yes. Okay.
So
My
side. The first one is, if not HR as a profession, what would it have been for you?
Sports person.
Boxer.
Or something around sports, and I would have been there. Okay.
All right. Cooking, cleaning, or mopping during COVID, which was easier?
I think mopping. I picked up because I was removed from the cooking job. I did a very bad job. So I was given a very critical feedback, and I was just given an assignment of mopping. That's it.
Don't come into the kitchen.
I know. I think at least a lot of us have experienced that, but I think it's Homi who called it out. And this is that question is, what is your next personal goal that you've picked for yourself, for your thinking part?
Yeah. So my personal goal is that, for quite some time I was wanting to, put my hands into, writing poems or writing particulars. I've been trying to attempt that for a long time. Okay, but somehow, I have interest around that. I have interest around this whole field of art, which is there as of now. So to learn an instrument as well and do something around that, because that's something, it's a personal hobby and it stays with you. And so maybe, I would be very happy if I had to come and speak about culture with sharing a poem with all of you all. With the poem, I'm sharing a message with all of you all is something which I'm thinking, if I'm able to do that, I'll be happy to share with you all.
Yeah, we'll wait for that. We will write today itself for that session. But that's interesting. Now, a book that had the maximum impact on you.
This is Man's Search of Meaning. That was one book which it's a Man's Search for Meaning, of course.
Viktor Frankl.
Yeah, it's an amazing book. I read it the first time when I read, I was so touched by it. I read it at least 4 to 5 times after that, just to understand what was going on in his mind and what exactly is the message being shared. And I think that's moved me the most, and which is where I think that nothing is permanent in life, and so you got to be ready to accept any kind of change as thrown on you or put across you, and you accept it and move on. And that if one reads that book, you'll get lots of meaning and message as to what happens to a human mind when you're put to a situation. And I think that's a book that I would recommend for everybody, especially to read it once before going through this time.
Good, thanks. I've just added to my delivery. Glad. And the last one thing you thank COVID for personally.
The time that I'm spending home with my family, I think I thank COVID for that. I think I see what happens is it made me realize the entire essence of being home, being together, understanding what happens. I thank COVID for a wonderful experience. See in Bombay, and I know everywhere it rains a lot, and every time there's monsoon times, there are waterlogging and everything which happens. Most of the time, whenever it was heavily raining here, okay, I was inside the office premise. Okay, I didn't even know what's happening. This is the first time I experienced what's happening all around. I mean, I saw the trees falling, I saw the leaves swinging, singing, everything happening, and it was such a beautiful thing to watch. That experience, I would have not got it otherwise. And I think, and that is an experience which I was able to enjoy along with my family to see what's happening. The monsoons are very beautiful. Okay, I mean, that's one of my favorite season as well. Okay, I just watched it, enjoyed it. I tried to write also something around it. Okay, but it was so very beautiful, and I thank this whole period for that.
Wow, thank you. That's it from my side, Homi.
Okay.
Yeah. So
thanks.
I just wanted to add one point about you talking about poems and all that, right? So very coincidentally, your name also sounds like Rumi. That I'm a very huge. I've read a lot of Rumi. And
okay.
I love poems as well, right? So and of course Viktor Frankl's book and the definition of love itself. What Viktor, how he defines love, how there is no need for the other person's physical existence itself. And I think there's another book, this called Road Less Traveled by Scott Peck, which has similar views. And I think these Austrians and Germans, they have, including Russians, have explored human mind in a very phenomenal way. It shows in all of these books. So I'm excited to read your poems now. So it looks like you've explored human emotions from a very different angle, and you enjoying the weather now. I think it's going to be very, very, and your ambition is to stitch all of this into culture as well. Now we are talking about a great piece that's going to come out. So definitely we have to stay in touch, and you have to share that with us.
Yeah, surely. So I thank you, Senthil, and thank you, Ketan, for inviting me. It was a wonderful experience, interacting with you all. And as I said, one thing is that I shared earlier also that, we all learn from each other. I'm learning, what Senthil is sharing. I'm learning what Ketan, how he's, conducting this whole session and how is, what he's thinking. And, both of you all are doing a wonderful job of putting this, thoughts towards this product. And I think, it'll have a good success once you have all the information around it and you're able to run it well. So I wish both of you all good luck in this journey.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. Chalo. Take leave now. Yeah. Thanks.
Yes. Thank you. Thanks.
Thanks.